New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Why, hello, good afternoon, good morning, good night, whenever you're watching me right now on your Doula for Grief. Just welcome. And just want to say that yes, you have come to the right place to begin your healing from grief. So I am Bonnie Morgan Gonzalez, and I am a grief coach. I am a registered nurse. I'm a religious science practitioner and a licensed soul collage facilitator. And as I love saying every week, my most important being is being a human being right here on the planet with you right now at these auspicious times as we all are navigating life's choppy waters and just supporting each other as we move through these challenging times. Oh, and I love that expression that on the other side of this is something beautiful, something wonderful that is waiting for us. And, I think whatever is going on, and this is what I have been doing lately, just falling into gratitude. I know that grief is painful. Oh, it's a difficult journey. And we have to touch that pain for it to heal. But what I want to say, even in the midst of this, knowing that it is difficult and we're navigating it, and we don't know how long it's going to take us to truly recover from our grief. But in this, let us fall into gratitude. Let's just look around and find something to be grateful for. Even if it's just in gratitude to have a computer, in gratitude to have the technology that we can be together right now, that you can listen to this conversation. Finding those moments of gratitude. Even if you have new, warm, cozy socks, if you're in a cold climate, or if you're sitting in front of a cool fan or air conditioner, if you're living in a hot climate. Let's take time to really be in gratitude. That is one of the tools for healing our grief. And I was going to say, if you're feeling like that is just so far-fetched to find gratitude, I know I've talked about this in the past, and I haven't brought it up for a long time. But when we're in grief, if there are 4 friends that we all need, if and when. And maybe at all times, at least 4 friends. I had one friend that said, if I had one friend, that's good. But maybe if you're fortunate enough, you have that one friend that offers these 4 characteristics. And the first friend, and this is by Tim Summerlin. And the idea is that you need a friend that has suffered the exact same loss that you have. And whatever, be it loss of a loved one, a pet, a loss of a lifestyle change, health issues. If you find someone that has suffered the exact same loss as you, that is one friend, because you have that common bond, that common shared loss. The other is to have a friend that treats you like nothing ever happened. And I'm sure we could find those friends. There's lots of people that don't like to confront grief or talk about it, but that's what we're doing. We're moving the needle on that. But anyway, find that friend that treats you like nothing ever happened. And oh, girl, let's go to the movie, or guy, come on, let's go out for dinner. Because grief is exhausting. Grief is truly exhausting. So we do need those moments of respite. And that's when that type of a friend can be of so much value, that they're treating you like nothing ever happened. The third friend would be a listener, someone that just listens to you without interrupting, to just listen. I have a darling friend who's a psychotherapist, and she talked to me about people just need to empty. And I've always said that people need someone that will listen to them. And it's both. They need to empty, but they need to know that they are being heard, that they're quote unquote being witnessed. So that friend that just listens and doesn't offer any advice or quick fix or anything, they're just a listener. They're just holding that space for you to truly, truly empty, talk, be heard, be witnessed. And the fourth friend is someone who's a truth teller, who tells you the truth about where you are. But none of that truth about, oh, it's time to move forward or get on with your grief. None of that. This person is pointing out to you what may be, I have a friend that says blind spots. Maybe you've been indulging in too much alcohol lately, or maybe just not being kind to people, and someone that can gently point those things out to you of where you are needing to focus some attention on some of your behavior, and not even judging you, but just pointing it out so that you become aware. Because sometimes I know I can do things and not really just not be aware, like that wasn't my intention. But to have someone to point it out, that is wonderful. So I say that because I've said fall into gratitude, and maybe you're feeling like there's nothing to be grateful for. But if you get with your friends, and you can just say to either one of these friends, I really want to, find something that I can be in gratitude, and they can help. And as Bell Hooks says that, we can't heal in isolation. We are truly, truly social creatures. So please, please look around if you've isolated yourself, because grief can move us into that place of being isolated. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I don't want to go here or there because people are looking. And we can kind of withdraw and start to isolate ourselves. And that is definitely something that really doesn't serve the healing process, to be in isolation. So anyway, I said all that. I said all that kind of spontaneously around gratitude. But I am in gratitude today. I am in gratitude to be here with you. I'm in gratitude for the opportunity to sit before my computer and talk with you about grief. Because my mission every week that I'm here, and not just when I'm here, but my mission, even as I'm moving out into the world, my mission is to move the needle on grief, to bring grief out of the shadows of our lives, bring it right smack dab into the middle of our lives so we can talk about it. What is that? The elephant in the room, so that we can all touch it, feel it, see what it's about. Demystifying grief. That is my mission, to be able to talk about grief, because grief has its beautiful gifts. Grief is transformative. You cannot move through grief and come out as the same person that went into that grief. Grief is like being in that holy chrysalis Oh, I call it a holy chrysalis. It's like being in a chrysalis. And I call it a holy sacred chrysalis, where there's lots of changes going on. And just like the butterfly in that chrysalis, it's a lot of yucky stuff going on in there before it emerges as that beautiful butterfly. So to know that whatever you're feeling is what is transforming you. You have to feel it to heal it. If you can't feel it, then you can't heal it. So to know that feeling grief means that that is exactly what is needed, because the grief is what heals. That is grief's superpower. It is healing. So I've said that, and just want to clarify too, loss and grief. And I again have met people over just this past weekend that was thinking that grief is because someone died. Grief is caused by loss. Yes, death is the biggest loss that we'll ever experience. That is the greatest pain that we will feel from that loss of a loved one. But know that we suffer a myriad of losses. As I said, loss of a job, loss of a relationship, a divorce, a geographical move, health, aging, puberty. Oh, I could just go on. Marriages, in a sense, you've gone from being single to being in a relationship, loss of that single status. So loss is what we experience. In turn, grief is what we feel. So knowing being in grief does not just mean the death of someone. I this morning was just thinking about a loss, but it wasn't a death. I do something called soul collage, and I'll just hold this up. I instruct people on how to make these small 5x8 collage cards. And this is just one of my favorite cards that has been with me, gosh, I think for at least 8 years or so. But anyway, I had, oh my gosh, so many of these cards. Gosh, maybe 70 or so, because I've been making them over the years. And somehow in one of my moves of clearing out the storage, all of the cards accidentally got thrown in the trash. And I realize now that's been about 2 years ago that I've been holding my breath around that loss. It's like I just really can't believe it. I've just been holding my breath around. It's like, oh, that just couldn't have happened. My precious, precious soul collage cards gone. And just this morning, I just allowed myself to accept that they are gone and to realize that I didn't mourn the loss of those cards. This morning, I allowed myself to just really cry around those cards. So that's what I'm just saying, that loss is what we experience, grief is what we feel, and it definitely doesn't have to just be death put you into those feelings of anger, sadness, confusion, numbness, and relief. So just want to say that, to just know that loss and grief, the difference in what is going on when we talk about grief. It's just that we have suffered a loss. So I want to talk to you about, something. I saw a movie over the weekend on Netflix, and it's called The After. And it's a short Netflix movie. I didn't realize that Netflix had short movies, because I was like, already, I told my daughter and granddaughter, oh, I'm going to watch this sad movie, the sad tearjerker movie. And my daughter was saying, oh, if you don't watch that, I'm okay. And I was a little bit skeptical of watching, because I'm just such an empath. I can watch emotional films and just feel, just really still have those emotions carrying them for days, if not weeks. So I was a little bit gun shy about watching it, because it said it was a tearjerker and had some not too graphic, but graphic beginning of a violent crime. And it's called The After. So if you can, I'd say watch it. It's only like 18 minutes. It was just so quick. But this is what the review had to say about it. It's like The After. And it says The After takes place largely in public, where emotions like grief are typically hidden from view. The main character is able to suppress his grief, but there is an event which results in a cathartic scene on the street where the character's name is Dio, completely breaks down, forcing the people that are with him to witness his pain. And this is what the leading actor has to say about the role that he played. He says, grief is shocking, even when the loss is expected. And this is his name is, I think the first name is David Oyelowo, who channeled his own experience, losing his father in September of 2020 and his mother 3 years earlier. He says, we have coping mechanisms that allow us to still laugh, to eat, to go about our day. But he adds, but the reality is that grief impacts our bodies, minds, souls, and spirits. It will manifest in one way or another. And he says that in this 18 minutes of the film, that they were really able to capture this honesty. And it was very, very moving how he finally breaks down. He finally breaks down with all of his grief and pain and anguish, and you can feel it. But knowing that it's being held in, that is unhealthy as well. That is truly unhealthy. So if you could get a minute to watch that, I just thought it was just, I thought it was written for your doula for grief, so that we could talk about how, yes, we can try to move through and not feel like grief, but it is going to come out. And if we can have times that we allow it to come out, like with my coaching clients, I will say, take 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, set the alarm and just lean into that grief and allow whatever emotions to come up. I'd rather have them have that, to do that, than to, like this poor man breaking down on the sidewalk in the street, or exploding at the post office because the line is moving too slow. So with that, I am going to, I promise, get to the theme of our program. But I just wanted to talk to you about loss and grief, and just having, falling into gratitude, having some friends that can help support you. And, people want to help. If nothing else, people want to help because we are social creatures. So with that, I just want to say our theme for today is the 6 needs of the grieving, the 6 needs of the grieving. And I was so lucky to have been able to participate in a workshop by David Kessler. He studied with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. He studied death and dying with her. And also he wrote a book with Louise Hay. So he's quite the expert on grief, on loss and grief. And what so endears me to David Kessler also is that a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, he lost his own son to a tragic accident. So it really, really, when I hear him speak, I know he's speaking from the heart. And I so admire that he's able to speak about his son with such a reverence, and even allowing his emotions to come through. So it just gives him so much credibility with doing this work. So I so love David Kessler. So we're going to talk about David Kessler's 6 needs of the grieving. But before we do that, let's just take a quick break and let's all regroup and get your coffee if you haven't gotten it, or your cup of tea, or bathroom break, whatever you need. We'll take a quick break and come right back. Thanks.
New Thought Radio, music from all your favorite New Thought artists. From Jamie Lula, Karen Drucker, Gary Lynn Floyd, Ricky Byers, Daniel Nahmod, Eddie Watkins Jr., and many, many more. 24/7 New Thought Radio. Positively inspiring.
Hi, I'm still here. Thank you for coming back. So, as I said, the theme of our program today is the 6 needs of the grieving. And before I get into those 6 needs, I just want to read this, The Splendor of Love by Mark Matusek. I read it often, but if you've heard it before, that's so wonderful. And hearing it again, maybe hearing it from a different place or a different perspective. Or just listening, just closing your eyes and just feeling into the words of this. And it's A Splinter of Love by Mark Matusek. Grief may be the greatest healing experience of a lifetime. It's certainly one of the hottest fires we will encounter. It penetrates the hard layers of our self-protection, plunges us into the sadness, the fear, and despair we have tried so hard to avoid. Grief is unpredictable, uncontrollable. There are no shortcuts around grief. The only way is right through the middle. Some say time heals, but that's a half-truth. Time alone doesn't heal. Time and attention heals. In grief, we access parts of ourselves that were somehow unavailable to us in the past. With awareness, the journey through grief becomes a path to wholeness. Grief can lead us to a profound understanding that reaches beyond our individual loss. It opens us to the most essential truth of our lives, the truth of impermanence, the causes of suffering, and the illusion of separateness. When we meet these experiences with mercy and awareness, we begin to appreciate that we are more than the grief. We are what the grief is moving through. In the end, we may still fear death, but we don't fear living nearly as much. In surrendering to our grief, we have learned to give ourselves more fully to life. Yes, giving more fully to life. And that's Mark Matusek, Splinter of Love. And the last part, when he says we have learned to give ourselves more fully to life. Next week, this is a segue into my next week's guest, and we're going to talk about living a life of no regret. She calls it pushing the play button, and so we'll discuss that. Yes, that we are here to live and to live beyond, moving through our grief, and that's just part of the human experience. So, as I promised, the 6 needs of the grieving by David Kessler, and as I said, he's a grief expert who studied with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross back in the day. So the first need of the griever is to have your pain witnessed. And as I just read in the above paragraph, that it says time heals all wounds. Time heals all wounds is not a truth. Time and connection is what heals. And to think about it, grief is not a problem to be solved. It's really not. We're not trying to fix people, because people aren't broken if they're in grief. They're not broken. They're just in grief. Staying out of the judgment is what's most important. And people just need to be met right where they are, to meet people right where they are, without the lecture of you need to move on, or even them themselves feeling like, oh, I shouldn't still have this pain. It's like you'll have that pain as long as you need to have that pain. There's no should. When your pain dissipates, it's on your time. It's on your time. So honoring right where you are and knowing that, and if you're the person that's supporting the griever, to know too that you're not there to fix them, you're there to listen. Because as I said, people are not broken and they're not in need of fixing. They are in need of having their pain witnessed. And even if someone is suffering the same loss that I have, most of us, or so many people that I know, have lost their mother. I say, instead of saying, I know how you feel, I know exactly how you feel, I lost my mom, I just say, I know that it is hard. I know that it's painful because I've lost mine. So I know that that is painful. But to know how they exactly feel, I don't know. But it's a place to start. It's a place to have communication. It's a place for that person to know that they are being witnessed. They are being heard. So, and the second is to express your feelings. So number one is to have your pain witnessed. Number two is express your feelings. We are the first generation, I think, that have been given permission to really talk about what we feel. And we're first generation to say, oh, I'm feeling extremely sad and lonely without my friends around now that I've moved. But then we'll say, oh, but I shouldn't be sad or lonely. I should just be in gratitude. It's like, no, express what you're feeling. The gratitude can come later. That can come much later. But for right now, it's about expressing your feelings. And you have to touch the pain. And this is difficult, but so necessary, to touch the pain, which can then in turn lead to that confusion, disorientation, be it fear, guilt, relief, jealousy, anger, bitterness, whatever comes up. State it. Be with it. Be with it unapologetically. Unapologetic. Be with what you feel. And David Kessler does go on to talk about anger, because anger is really a hot one that comes up. And I always say that anger comes up to really mask how deeply hurt we are. That anger is masking something, but be with the anger because that's what you're feeling. And he just goes on to say that so many people are uncomfortable with anger because they never had anger modeled for them in a healthy and a comfortable way. That we're just not comfortable with anger. But it is definitely an emotion that needs to be accepted, looked at, held. Whatever needs to happen with that anger, it needs to be expressed and felt. And the other aspect of that is what he says is that we're not taught all the colors of grief. And that is my point exactly. When I do my grief training and workshop, I ask people, how did you learn to grieve? Who taught you to grieve? Who sat with you and explained what grief is? And who allowed you to grieve? When your dog ran away, or when you moved to a new school and you were missing your old friends, did someone sit with you and say, yes, I know you're sad because, we're in a different location. It's okay to feel whatever it is that you're feeling, or throwing things across the room. We just, and there's nobody to blame or beat ourselves up. We're learning. Maya Angelou says it so well. When we know better, we do better. As we learn how to navigate grief, then we do better with it. As I learn, That's allowing other people to learn. As I allow myself or give myself permission to grieve, it's giving other people permission to allow their grief to be to be present. So, and if we don't, if we don't go back to the verse where we have our grief witnessed, we ruminate over it over and over and over again, especially when you hear people telling the same stories over and over again. It's like they didn't get witness. They didn't get that, yes, I hear you. Sit with me, tell me. Yes, they didn't get that. So if someone is retelling their story many times, it's because they did not have it witnessed back in the early stages. And if you can be that person that allows them to tell their story and acknowledge it in a way that they really feel that they have been heard, you're really helping. You're really helping them to grasp it and come to terms with it. So that's express your feelings. The first, as I said, is to have your pain witnessed, express your feelings. And now we're at release the burden of guilt. And this is a big one. This is just a big one, that guilt often accompanies grief, but it's not warranted or necessary. Just to know that grief is normal. That guilt is normal. Guilt is normal. And if you're with someone, and especially if you're a clinician, if you're working with someone, it may take lots of rounds of working with them to get them to release this guilt, to release the guilt. The way that David Kessler holds it is that guilt is about control. He says our minds would rather feel guilty than helpless. Think about that for a minute. That guilt is about control, and our minds would rather feel guilty than helpless. People will say, if I hadn't done X, Y, and Z, maybe, the dog wouldn't have died. If I hadn't left the house unattended or the stove unattended, there would not have been a fire. Or if I had not done X, Y, and Z, that whatever happened would not have happened. And the idea is to finally get someone to see not only the what if I hadn't done X, Y, and Z, but to finally get them to the place of, even if I had done X, Y, and Z, even if I had stayed at my father's bedside, he still would have died. Even if I had left home earlier, that accident would have still happened. Even if I had sunbathed or whatever, my skin would still be wrinkly or whatever. But to go from what if to eventually allowing that what if to eventually become even if. So many people long after the event has passed will still continue to just beat themselves up with this guilt, feeling guilty that if they had done just something totally different, the event would not have happened. And that is just it, but it's for them to work through that and to finally see that even if they had done whatever it is they think they could have done, the event still would have happened. And I just want to say this, people that are in grief are very, very fragile and need to be held very gently, very gently. Some people think, oh, shake people up by the collar or whatever. No, they need to be held very, very gently. So we're going to keep moving through. So as it said, want to have your pain witness, express your feelings, release the burden of guilt. To finally get to that place, or to finally realize that guilt is just about control, because the mind would rather feel guilt and to feel helplessness. And then this is one that takes a little bit of wrapping our heads around, and that is to be free of old wounds. And David Kessler goes on to say that we bring all our wounds to grief. Grief reveals so much pain that's the underpinning of it, that's underneath our lives. And they're wounds from our past. And just to think about it, when you're in grief around something, when a loss happens and it puts you into grief, think about it. All of the losses that you have suffered before are brought to now. It just brings it all up again. It brings all of those other losses come into play. And I feel that is what he's talking about when he talks about our wounds from the past. And he phrases it's not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. And a time to, so much on your plate when you're grief, but you get to revisit those old wounds. If they are traumatic wounds, you get to revisit those as well. And the idea is to really work with someone. If that is the case, to work with someone to help these traumatic wounds become cherished wounds. To see how, because you experience X, Y, and Z, then it gave you the resilience, the stamina to move through the rest of your life, that resilience to come into your life, to become that resilient person that you are now. So as I'm saying, grief is not easy, and I'm not trying to whitewash it or sugarcoat it. None of those things. Just leaning into the truth of what it is and to know what to expect. And remember, I always say, don't do grief alone. Don't do grief alone. So here we are now at number 5. And that's to integrate the pain in the love. Integrating the pain in the love. And I feel that that's when it comes to that acceptance of what has happened. To integrate the pain in the love. And I'll keep this in the eye. And you know that I lost my baby brother in 2020 on Valentine's Day. And then in my baby brother, Melvin. And then I lost my older sister, Linda, suddenly in December. And so that has been very, very, very painful to lose 2 siblings in the span of a very short time. And it is definitely painful. I miss my siblings. And with sibling loss, there's a part of your history that's lost. My sister Linda was like, an encyclopedia, or she had a long memory. Elephants have long memories, right? I could call her up and say, what was the name of that book we read when we were little, like when we were 4 years old or whatever? She would know what it was exactly. And I so miss that. I so miss that. And I so felt like when she left, I even had a dream a few months after she died or transitioned. I dreamt I visited with her in a cafeteria of all places. And I just remember looking in her eyes, and it was just like looking in her eyes in a real, like the dream was so vivid. And I just remember asking her, why did you die and leave me? Why did you die and leave me? And I didn't know that I was suffering from that type of abandonment. I didn't know that was the issue until that dream. So when I read this about integrating the pain and the love, I finally have come to a place today, I can say today, who knows, with grief, sometimes we circle back to wherever we started. But for today, I can integrate that love and in good times and laughter with the pain of having lost her. I've integrated the two. And with my brother Melvin, because he was a trickster and oh my gosh, a fun guy and could make you laugh and laugh. Nobody could make him laugh as hard as nobody could make me laugh as hard as he could make me laugh. So Melvin and Linda, so integrating that pain of both of that painful loss, but integrating it into accepting the beautiful love that we still share. Oh, and that brings a point. I'm just thinking now that yes, when our loved ones die, yes, physically they're taken away. But do you know that our love still continues to grow spiritually for them? Our love, our connection does not die with a physical death. It continues. We continue to love them. And I know that that love is real for me, for both my siblings. So, yes. So, that brings us to the sixth item that's on the list of for the needs of the mourning of the griever, and that is finding meaning in life after loss. And David says, meaning is not what happened to us in the horrible event, but it's what happens to us later. Meaning is what happens when you excavate the pain. You're able to find little cherished moments that have meaning for you. And that's everybody's journey on that issue of finding meaning will be so individual and so unique for you. My finding meaning from my losses with my brother-in-law, my brother, my sister. Oh my gosh, we've had so many losses and lifestyle changes and so many things that have happened in just the last few short 3 years. For me, what I've been able to find meaning is with doing this work, sitting with those that are in grief, sitting with those and bringing comfort with the grievers that I encounter and clients that I work with. This is the meaning that has been excavated for me to be a doula for grief. So with that said, these steps are just like the 5 stages of grieving. You may go back and forth, and there may be difficult times, and there may be times where everything's perfect, but you can't skip any of these steps. And just like, as I said, just like with the stages of grief, there's no linear fashion that you go through one and then you're at the other. You may go back and forth and repeat them as many times as needed for you to heal and to continue to move forward. And, healing our grief is our inner work. I always say that healing our grief is an inside job. So many things, change, so focus, and introspection, it's all an inside job. So, and just to know that, grief is organic. But know this, that we are designed to survive. I'll call it multiple hits of different types of emotional stressors. We are designed to survive. And that is one thing about moving through horrific grief or circumstances of grief, moving through it. It shows us our resilience. It shows us our resilience. And I want you to know that grief will not overwhelm you. It will not pull you down and drown you and never to be seen again. That's not grief's MO at all. Grief is here to allow you to have that respect for your own resilience. So we're going to just take a little break and just be with that for a moment. That grief shows you your resilience. Yes, how resilient you truly are. So we're just going to take a little break and come back and wrap things up.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Hello, I am still here. Yes. Oh my gosh, the time just goes by so quickly. But I just want to recap. Oh no, maybe I won't recap. Well, I will recap. Okay, those six. Sorry. I put my own little note up. My six needs of the griever. So one is just to have your pain witnessed. If you want to write these down, the first one is to have your pain witnessed. Two, express what your feelings are. Just express what you're feeling. And release the burden of guilt. Release that burden of guilt. Knowing that guilt is about control, and that our minds would rather feel guilty than helpless. And four is to be free of old wounds. Know that when we're in grief, all of our past losses will come into play. So don't be alarmed by that. Don't be alarmed. You can be surprised, but just don't be alarmed. And if you know it, then you can be prepared for it. And that is what can allow you to really work on it when you're prepared. And 5 was to integrate the pain and the love. And then 6 is finding meaning after loss. So with that said, thank you. I'm going to talk a little bit about a workshop that I'm offering. I live down here in Chapala, Mexico. So if you're coming to Ajijic or to Lake Chapala area, know that April 5th, I am going to be doing a grief workshop, but it's the wisdom of soul collage to begin healing our grief. And that's going to be April 12th from noon to 4 in San Antonio, Tlayacapan. Not San Antonio, Texas, but San Antonio, Tlayacapan, here in Jalisco, right around the lake. And so we're just going to have a beautiful day of just really touching into our grief with some beautiful meditations, beautiful music. It's just a lovely venue. And I know that you will leave feeling, so much lighter around your grief. And you'll make a soul collage card that will be like a touchstone for your grief. That's what I'm calling a touchstone for your grief. Or whatever, your intuition will be speaking to you, and you will make the card that you need to leave with that day. So know that is that's coming up. So April 12th, if you know someone that's living down here and they would like to attend, please have them contact me. You can contact me, Bonnie, at yourdoulaforgrief.com, or just yourdoulaforgrief.com. Thank you, Joe, for putting that up there. Yes, Bonnie at yourdoulaforgrief.com. So I want to thank the New Thought Media Network for being so brave to venture into grief with me, to allow me to have this speaking platform every week to talk about. As I told you last week, I just recently found out that grief is the #1 not talked about subject. So I just thank New Thought Media Network for having that far-reaching vision 2 years ago to say yes to talking about grief and to know that this program is well received. I have just really been receiving some wonderful comments from people that are watching around the world. So I thank New Thought Media. And if you think this is a wonderful program, there are other programs on New Thought Media. Joe, I don't know what you have that you can show, but I know that there's a prosperity with Reverend Webb on Sunday nights. Yes, the Miracle of Prosperity with Reverend Jim Webb. There's also on Thursdays. Yes, Joe, you know me, my good friend and brother Zoe de Moro, who does Choice, Your Creative Superpower. Oh, and there is a fireside chat with Reverend Michael Mangus. I'm telling you, if he wasn't a minister and in a pulpit and counseling people, he could be a stand-up comic with a nightly routine. He's just a delightful, delightful young man, and his shows are so enlightening and so interesting. And I know you won't be disappointed with turning in to hear him. And then Spiritual Toolkit. Yes, and that's a relatively new show, but I have been able to tune in. And again, you will be not even pleasantly surprised. I think you'll get an idea of the quality of the programs on New Thought Media Network. And that will be your expectation of quality programs. And Joe, I do believe there was the prayer, prosperity, and poetry that's on Tuesdays, I believe, and that's with her name, Tracy. I was going to say Tracy Ellens, Tracy Brown, a spiritual practitioner with New Thought Media. So that is just a sample of what you can expect on New Thought Media. So I think you should just give it a whirl, check it out, see what else is on. And before I go, I'll just read you something from Sabon Fu Somé, who I so love and admire, who quite a young woman from West Africa who made her transition a few years ago. But she was truly a wise woman, and talked a lot about her tribe in Africa. That when there was a loss of any kind or death, it's like the whole village, the entire village mourns. And they would say, not that, grief has found Bonnie or grief has found Joe. It's like, no. They would say grief has found us. It's a collective thing. It's a collective grieving and a collective healing. And just to think what can happen in that kind of environment when everyone is saying they're in grief and they're able to talk together and to mourn together and be together and to listen together. And she says they would never say to someone, "Oh, aren't you over that yet? Oh, haven't you moved on? It's time to move on." She said instead they would say, "Have you cried enough? Have you grieved enough? Have you been sad for a long period of time?" Like giving you permission to experience all those things that we love to run from. And please believe me, I'm not beating up on our culture. As I said, we just didn't know better. We just didn't know better. We just didn't know how we were not leaning into grief, or not even leaning into it, but acknowledging it and holding it sacred, because it is sacred. There's a poem, I don't have it now, maybe I'll read it next time, but they said, the poem goes to say, or the reading says, it's by Tara Brach, and she talks about how When you're in grief, that is truly a sacred and powerful time. That the Lakota Indians felt that someone that was in grief had like a direct voice to the divine, that their prayers were even more powerful. And it was like, if you want your prayers answered, the best person to give them to is a person that is in grief, that is mourning. And that is a truth that we haven't experienced before until now that we talk about it. So this is from Sabonfu Some. And she just says, we experience many joys and sadness in our lives. Many times we have grief that we don't have words for. We have many losses. It's important for us to grieve, to recover from what we have lost. Grieving is a soul cleansing way to reclaim and to recover our spirit. When we don't grieve, we stay in an unhealthy place and lose who we are. So it is very important to cry, to walk in nature, to express our grief so that we can feel safe and sane once again. Also, so our bodies can recover from the loss. Yes, so that our bodies can recover from the loss. And yes, I feel that if we can just acknowledge, and not that you've got to make great strides today, but just very simple, tiny baby steps. Baby steps. And if you're not in grief, that is wonderful. If you don't have issues to grieve, I am so happy for you. But if you know someone who is in grief, please reach out. Please reach out. Just call, leave a message. Simple, I'm thinking about it. And I know we all mean well when we say, oh, I'm here, call me if you need me. I mean, what a loving thing to say, call me if you need me. But they're not going to call you. People in grief are not going to call you. They're just not. It takes energy, it takes bandwidth that maybe they don't even have. So the better thing to say is that I will call you. I will check in on you. I'll call you in a week. If you need to, mark it on your calendar. You know, we're all so busy, but we all have those beautiful smartphones. We could set a little alarm. Call Tammy on Friday evening at 3, just see how she's doing. Your little alarm goes off and you call. Whatever it is that you have to do to remember, to check in. Because I know that we all care. We all care about our friends. So just make a note that if you have someone that is grieving, that just lost someone, lost a job even, call just to express that you're thinking about them and that you know it must be difficult. So with that said, I just want to thank you for listening again today. And just, my tagline is don't do grief alone. Promise me you won't do grief alone. And right now, I want you to go and I want you to look yourself in the eye, right in the mirror. Go to that mirror, look yourself in the eye and say, what do I need today? What do I need today? Whatever comes up, honor it, do it. Thank you, and thank you for listening. And I'm here. I am a grief coach, so you can always reach out to me. I am here. So thank you so much. And until next time. Ciao. Thank you, Joe, for putting that on. Thank you. See you next week.